It's Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. My name is DC Marshall, and I'm here with my co-host,
Alfred Edmund Jr.
And listen, if you all have been listening to the show, and hopefully you are, but let's just say you are new to the show. This is a show about faith and finances. So we talk about, of course, money and wealth and how it is that we grow as a culture, as a people, but we also are rooted in faith. We are believers and we're bold and unapologetic about it. And you know, the word of the Lord says in John 10:10, the B clause, I've come that they may have life and have it to the full. And so Alfred and I, we believe. Listen, we are believers in the word. We are not the non-believing believers. You know, the people who believe in God, but they don't believe what God says. No, we're the believing believers. And if God says that he's come that we would have life and have it to the full, then we receive it. And our prayer is always that if you are plugged in, that you will get something here on this show that will help you to move into that. So, Alfred, why don't you tell them about our show today?
Today, we're going to talk to a profession, a population of servant professionals who are also very, very core to church life. And that is our teachers. And I'm not just talking about Sunday school teachers. I'm talking about professional teachers who've always been a core of religious life. But we're going to talk about, as a trained educator, how can I earn more money? We know there's a disconnect between the value we place on education and how we compensate our teachers. Today's guest is going to help us explore that for a very, very important part of our population, teachers. This is Be Lifted Up, your guide to living abundant life. We will be right back.
All right, and we're back. It's Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. And on this show, today's show, we are talking about the profession of educators, teachers, academicians. I think I'm going to add them, right? It's anybody who is in the profession or trained to educate in a formal capacity. And the reason we're talking about that today is because we know some of the most important, if not the most important profession and role are educators, K through 12 and even above, but they are not compensated their worth. They are not valued in ways that, you know, Alfred, I always compare them to Wall Street. You know, I've worked on Wall Street where there's oogobs and oogobs of money, but when it comes to educators, not so much. And so I love that we are talking about, as trained educators, we're talking about y'all's money, our money, the people who take care of our kids, our grandbabies, our godbabies, our nieces and our nephews, and how it is that they need to make more, but until they can make more, how you can earn more. So Alfred, what do you want to share about today's show on getting paid what you deserve? What say you, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, getting paid what you deserve, being able to leverage your value in the marketplace is actually something that's important to understand for any profession, but especially important for teachers, who are, depending on what city and what school system you're operating in, you have a variety of hurdles to navigate in order to really get paid what you're worth, get paid something that measures up to the value of what you're delivering. As you said, Dee, we're talking about the most precious resource we can have in the hands of a professional, and that is the hearts and minds of our children. And let me just say this, we know when it comes to Black children and Black teachers who are underrepresented, we know that there's a lot more at stake, even beyond the salary. We're talking about the degree to which our kids succeed in school, the likelihood that they'll go off to college, the likelihood of whether they'll drop out of school or not. Having a Black teacher increases the positive outcomes across the board. But most people, I know I remember my first Black teacher wasn't until I was in third grade. I didn't have another one until I got to high school, and then I was in college. Having a Black person in front of you teaching makes a significant academic difference, which means it makes an economic difference because it affects the earning power of that student once they matriculate into the world. So this is a broad and important topic, but we have the perfect guest to have this conversation, Dr. Bisa Batten Lewis, author, speaker, educator, development coach. We are so glad to have you on this show because you are the right person to have this conversation. Somebody said an educational powerhouse. Welcome to the show, Dr. Bisa.
Thank you so much, Alfred and Dee. I'm so happy to be here to talk to our fellow educators or anyone who educates anyone at any level in any profession.
Listen, Dr. Bisa, talk to me about your journey to this particular cause, this particular ministry, this particular goal. You've been 3 decades in the education space. You've been helping educators to rethink their own value in the marketplace. Talk to me about your journey and how you come to be doing what you're doing now.
Thank you for this space. So I started out in terms of entrepreneurship. Let me start there, go way, way back to childhood. So my grandfather, I'm a GPK, my grandfather was a pastor, but he also had a barbershop. Well, I thought he owned the barbershop until here recently at a family event. I was told, Bisa, he didn't own it. I said, well, I thought he did, but he worked there like he owned it. So we went in every day for cookies, those big barbershop cookies, thinking this is our grandfather's barbershop, that he owned it. So that was a part of the quilt, I'll say, the fabric in my quilt. In addition to that, my mom worked at a factory, a candy factory, when we were growing up, and she was on the swing shift. So I recall when, oftentimes she was often asleep. When we got home, she was either at work or asleep. And when we got up to go to school, she was at work or asleep. And I recall her telling us, and I don't think she realized at the time how important this was. She told my sister and I, look, I do not want you guys to ever work in a factory. And it seemed like it just stuck with me, and I continued to work in that vein. So I remember as I went to college, I had 4 different majors. I started out as an accounting major because, I love math. And then I changed to computer science because the computers were coming really big. And then I realized how quickly technology was changing, and I didn't want to be in the school forever. So I changed to middle grade education, and then eventually to early childhood, which I was running away from because the children were so small. I didn't want to break one. And so majoring in early care and education, wow, it opened up a whole avenue in my career. So I started teaching first grade. I was a paraprofessional for 2 years, teacher assistant, started teaching first grade. And 4 years later, I jumped all the way up to the college level, Alfred, and started working at the college level at my alma mater, Albany State University. Go Rams, go to Rams, and HBCU. And from there, that's when I realized there was so much more you could do in education. So the dean placed me over the child development centers. We had 2 that our university was administering. And so I taught 2 classes to the adults on campus. And then I would supervise the center director and the participants and the staff at the child development center. And from there, I went, wow, this is a whole nother realm of our profession that we don't touch on because we're often talking about the school system. And lastly, a biggie that I'll share that really turned me on to entrepreneurship. My first conference presentation, I was a middle 20-something-year-old, and I was flying to Canada along with my dean to present on a program that we designed together, a summer program for teachers that we designed together. And from there, I met all these different professors from different places. One had written a literacy curriculum, and he was marketing that. One was on a sabbatical, and she was working with Mattel, the toy company. I'm thinking people do that. They pay you for your advice as an educator. And that conference way back in the late 90s is what started me on my path to become an entrepreneur in the field and support others in the field.
So you really have brought to the table the idea that an educator is not just an educator, or at least doesn't have to be just an educator, that by applying entrepreneurship and looking at the broader marketplace and those transferable skills, that there's other people that will pay you, what maybe a public school system or a particular town or a particular district may never pay you or may never be able to afford to pay you. But that doesn't necessarily have to limit you in terms of what you're able to earn and your capacity to create income and ultimately build wealth. And I know that led to you writing a book. We're going to talk about it when we come on the other side of this break. The Paid, yes, y'all, P-A-I-D, Paid Educator, 10 professional ways to supplement your teaching salary. What inspired you, in the time we have in this break, to write that book? And how, when did you write that book, and what led to the writing of that book?
I like to tell people God wrote it, Alfred, because I sat down to write a memoir. That's what I sat down to do.
Your plan, and then God was like, let me tell you, little girl, what you really gonna be doing.
You know what they say about telling God your plans, right? So I sat down to write this memoir about my life to inspire others. And this book came out about all the different things that I do to support others. And I was happy about that because people often ask, educators will often ask about some of the work I do, but they get a little timid and concerned when they think about even trying to do it. And I remember many conversations in the teacher's lounge and, trying not to be braggadocious to them, but, let them know, y'all, there are other things out here. You are so good at this skill. You are so good at that skill. You should show others how to do that and you can make money doing it. And, they would go into how much time they didn't have and all the reasons why. And I figured maybe if I put it in a book, that will support them. So I'm so happy God was doing this for me, making sure that this was in writing. And so in these 10 professional ways, it's actually that I'm showing them 10 professional ways that they can use their skills that they have to make additional income. A lot of teachers are working in department stores, especially during holiday break. You'll see them in department stores making money. You'll see them driving Uber, Lyft. There are so many different things they're doing outside of the classroom, but I wanted to show them professional ways so they can lift their heads up and poke their chest out and say, yes, I'm using the skills that I was trained to provide.
Listen, hold that thought. You're listening to Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. We're going to bring back Dr. Bisa. We're going to go through some of these ways that you can make more money as an educator using your skills and training as an educator. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. And if you are an educator, you love an educator supports your household, everybody knows somebody. And if you're in church, then teachers are a big part of your congregation. So listen, if they're not listening, you got to get them on to listen to this show because we got Dr. Bisa, who is the author of The Paid Educator, 10 Professional Ways to Supplement Your Teaching Salary. And Dr. Bisa, you're talking about, again, and I kind of want to pick up on what you said during the last segment, because we saw a lot of it, especially during the pandemic. When people were scrambling to try to supplement income, make more money. And then we also know about teachers who are literally going in some cases, into their own pocket to finance things for their classrooms. So you're talking about service-oriented people who don't always think about things they can do that's within their training as educators in this case, that only enhances their value in the marketplace, but doesn't distract like driving an Uber might from what they really, really want to be doing. So talk some more about this idea of it's not just making extra money, just be making extra money. It's really being strategic about the skills that you have that you got through education and experience in the classroom that could be leveraged in so many other ways in the marketplace.
Yes, thank you, Alfred. So P-A-I-D, it is an acronym for prospects, allies, information, and dollars. So, if you follow the PAI, the dollars will come. So when it comes to prospects, what are the good services, events, occupations? What are you considering doing? What talents you have? I tell my clients to, hey, hone in on your superpowers. There's something that you do extremely well that people look at you all the time and go, oh my goodness. So what is that? What is your superpower? And that is one way you might consider a prospect to make money. So think about who your clients will be. Who would want that particular product or service that you are so good at providing through your superpower? In terms of the A, allies, we always need allyship. Who can support you in making those connections? I have friends who work in school systems because I'm an educator. So they work in different school systems. And so I have a lot of connections to get to where people help me to know what's going on and to support me in moving my business forward even. So who are the allies in your life? They may not be a client per se, a prospect, but they may be someone who can help you to make those connections and help to make sure, hey, there's this program and this new grant out. You should connect with this. There's a conference coming up. You'd be be a great keynote speaker? Who are your allies? I is for information. And this is, what do you need to know to do your particular job better, your career better, but mainly your business better. What is it that you need to know a little bit more of? I just left a conference, and this time I just wanted to sit. I did not want to present. I didn't want to be behind the scenes, is what I told everybody. And we need to do that, sit and learn. I built so many new connections through this conference, especially since it was the first time in person in 3 years since because of the pandemic. So what information do you need to know? And then lastly, the dollars. How much money can you make doing that, selling that product or actually implementing that particular service? That's the P-A-I-D. And once you come up with your P-A-I-D, or definitely your P-A-N-I, let's move into the 10 different ways. So I divide the book up into 4 different segments. So it starts with reading, it goes into writing, we also get into speaking, and then finally selling. So they can see in those different ways how they can make money. My English teachers, I'll say, hey, they're really good. They're always reading, right? Reading papers and documents. Well, there are people who pay for that. Wow. So there are magazines out there, there are blogs. So, you guys will eventually grab the book or go online and look at more information. But those are just a few. Speaking, also, again, proofreading, editing, writing yourself. Again, just a snippet of what's in there.
Dr. Bisa, I always tell entrepreneurs, even those who are not teachers, that teaching is a skill set. And one of the things that a lot of people I know, both in the teaching profession, who aren't traditional teachers, have found out that they knew something really well, they were passionate about it, and that people would pay for a class to learn how to do it just the way, because you enjoy it because it's a thing you love, but you're a teacher. So what you can teach a class in your house, at a local university. I mean, I'm just amazed at the degree to which a number of people that I know who and let's say within the teaching profession, really leverage their ability to really communicate information and to get people excited about learning, which is something that can be applied. It's not something just for your 8-year-old. I mean, there are senior citizens that are like, I want to learn how to do this thing, and you're willing to teach me. I'm willing to pay for that. Talk to me about this idea of understanding that teaching itself is a valuable skill set in a marketplace where people either want to learn new things, or if they want to make money themselves, often need to learn new things. And you don't have to be stuck within a particular structure of elementary school or a college campus to be able to find opportunities to give that value to the marketplace and be paid for it.
Yes. So here's the thing. I like to always say that, I'm never trying to pull teachers out of the classroom. We know we need teachers in the classroom, but it's also important that we know what can we do to improve our lifestyle, right? Unfortunately, as you all said earlier, as Dee said, we're making less than most other professions. Childcare providers, oh my gosh, the lower you go down into the education level, the less you make. And why is that? Even on college campuses, you would be amazed. I had students who would graduate when I was teaching college, who would graduate making the same salary I made or more.
Wow.
Interesting, right?
Yeah,
So,
really.
yeah. So if you think about it, as educators, we have a big heart. This is the main concern here, is we have these skills and talents that people would pay for. We have these products that we could create that people would pay for, but we have a big heart and we don't want to charge for it.
Oh, wow. I want you to dig deeper into that, because I talked to some people. I'm thinking of a person in particular. I'm not going to call their name out, but she actually felt guilty about accepting payment for something that was absolutely helping the person she was teaching make a lot of money. Yeah. And like you said, the big heart that, and again, there's nothing wrong. We know teachers are service oriented, but what do you have to do to navigate the people that you work with past this idea that, yes, you are providing a service, but that service is worth something, and you're not doing something wrong or unethical as an educator to be compensated for what you're bringing to the marketplace?
I definitely have to help them monetize their services. And sometimes it starts small. I remember during the pandemic, a music educator, she charged $5. $5 and was given this amazing musical experience online, but she became a millionaire that way. You know, you go to Teachers Pay Teachers. That was a major pivot in our profession, because so many teachers were selling what they were just making, artistic tools to teach the alphabet in their classroom. And they were making money, again, becoming millionaires by selling something for $1, $8 on Teachers Pay Teachers. So it's important to just, for educators, and I'm saying this to you guys, educators, come on, what is your superpower? Think about how much your school even pays for people to come in to teach you. We have so much professional development that we have to attend. And oftentimes we are sitting there going, I could have done that, and I could have done it 10 times better. But we sit through professional development through and throughout the year, knowing that we also have something of value to offer. So talk to someone also in your life who will also say, hey, you do this very well. Let me also help you and support you in monetizing what you do. Start with a small fee if that makes you feel better. Do 1 or 2 for free if that makes you feel better, to get people interested in it. But don't continue to do it for free.
As we wrap up this segment, I want to give some thoughts on this side of the segment where we can dig into it more. We lose so many good teachers who don't want to leave the profession, but either through economic necessity or whatever, they have to leave the profession. And what I think you offer to those teachers who really do see this work as a ministry, as much as a pastor sees it as a ministry or a praise leader sees it as a ministry, there are teachers, the best teachers, I think, who see this as a ministry. So when we come back from the break, I want you to talk about the willingness to buy into what you're promoting in your book and as an education leader and motivator, that this is a way for you to really continue in your ministry in a full-hearted way without feeling like I either got to do what I got to do to survive and make money, or I can do what I really feel called by God to do. So listen, we're listening to Be Lifted Up, Your Guide to Living an Abundant Life. I'm here with Dr. Bisa. We're talking about ways educators can boost their income and still pursue their ministry as educators. We'll be right back with Be Lifted Up, Your Guide to Living an Abundant Life. Welcome back to Be Lifted Up, Your Guide to Living an Abundant Life. And we're just having a really important conversation because we're talking about really a form of ministry. Teachers who, there are some teachers that just do it because it's kind of a job, but we know that the best teachers, the most important teachers, the ones that are dedicated to profession, really approach this as a ministry. And I don't mean just Sunday school teachers. I'm talking about teachers that teach, whether it's early childhood education, all the way up through college and postgraduate education. We have our guest, Dr. Bisa Batten Lewis, who really is doing a great service, a ministry of her own, by helping educators to understand how they can maximize their skill sets to still do what they love, still do what they're called to do, but not necessarily take a literal oath of poverty to do it. So, Dr. Bisa, talk about how this can help many teachers who are very passionate about teaching save the careers and stay in the profession that they really, really do love.
Teachers. Once you have honed in on what your superpower is, don't think about the money first. Think about the P, the A, the I, the prospects, allies, and the information. What do I need to do next to make sure that I can truly get my name out there? I know y'all educators, it's hard. You don't want to be popular. You worry about the celebrity status. Let me tell you, if people don't know who you are, how can they work with you? They have to know who you are. Social media is so important. If you don't want to do it, find a Gen Z or a millennial in your life and they can help you. But it's so important that name recognition is there. So while you're on your job, you're working full time, go ahead and branch out and start presenting at conferences, also local professional development. Join a committee. I remember when I was teaching high school, I was training teachers in high school in early care and education, training young students to be childcare providers and teachers. And I was on the professional development committee, ended up leading it along with my assistant principal. That's a skill I had, is working with adults as well. Well, also presenting at conferences. Years ago in the 90s, when I was teaching at the college level, I was presenting at conferences. So again, you do this while you're on your full-time job. You may not be getting paid for it, but you're building your brand and you're building name recognition. It may take you 4 or 5 years, but at that mark, you can determine how much you want to charge. You need to start charging to go into programs so that you can train staff or whatever your particular superpower is. So think about how you can monetize that. And lastly, for the segment, I'll just share briefly, one thing I started doing was working with mommy baby companies, because I'm an early childhood educator and adult educator. So those, oh my gosh, those skill sets came together so well. I remember being contacted by a mama baby toy company, third top in the nation and abroad. And I walk into their office, and imagine an educator, Alfred, with this. I go in and my name is on the screen. Welcome, Dr. Bisa Lewis. I'm just a lowly educator, right? That's how we think. But my name was on the screen, and that made me feel, wow, they value me. Why do I have imposter syndrome and I don't value myself? Oh. And from there, I was writing information to help them to sell their toys using the developmental information that I knew as a professional.
You know, Dr. Bisa, one of the things that I learned as a journalist when I first got into my profession, but I found it's true across all professions. Simply people knowing your name for what you do will command more money than if you're an anonymous. In other words, you got the exact same skill set, the exact same degrees, the exact same education level, but if one person, I know your name and you're just another teacher, you automatically command more money. You know, as a young journalist, I figured out it's important people to know that not just any staff writer wrote that article. And I'm talking about when I was, in my 20s, just starting out in the profession. It became a part of my brand that Alfred Edmond Jr. wrote that article, and that was leverage for me, not only in my current job, but in terms of what I could command for going forward in my career. So I really want to circle back to a point you made earlier about, and now we have social media, which we didn't have when I started out in the business 30 plus years ago, that it's not only okay, but it's good for you to what we call reputation management, to use LinkedIn, to use Instagram, to use TikTok even, depending on the market you're serving, to build a reputation around your name. So you're not just any art teacher in a public school, you are that art teacher. You're not just any, special education leader. Talk to me about, because this goes to, again, branding, entrepreneurship. It doesn't mean you're going to leave the profession, but every teacher is special in his or her own way, and the ability to shape your brand around that says a lot about, even within your job. This is a difference between losing an anonymous teacher out of your school versus, oh no, Dr. Batten is talking about leaving the school. Let's have a conversation before that happens. So talk to me about this idea that, social media, it's not just about being famous, it's about creating a reputation that has value in the marketplace.
Oh, yes, it is so true. And it can be uncomfortable. I know it can be uncomfortable. It is a must. I tell you, if I can do this, did this years ago without social media, you guys, I used to say 5 years. I was told in the 90s, it'll take you about 5 years to get your name out there, present for free, do this and that. But now it won't take 5 years because of social media. I was introduced to social media in 2009. My friend, next door neighbor who I grew up with in childhood, the great Lethea Owen, she's a global marketing consultant now. She said, "Bisa, are you on social media?" And I wasn't. So 2009, I never forget, I got on Facebook, I got on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also now that Instagram's available, but on Instagram, TikTok. It is important because, again, people that I would never see or touch, they will still know what I do. And also the tagging is important. We know hashtags are important. We know tagging others is very important. So in a lot of rooms, when I ask for something, it's easier to get it for my fellow colleagues. And I can do it because of the brand that has been built. So it's really important. Lastly, I'll share, I remember being at an event reading to some students, some children, and one of the educators, she was looking at me and she finally came over and she said, "I want to do some of the things you're doing, but I don't like talking about myself. I don't want to be on social media talking about myself." I said, "Well, you know what? It's going to be really key in order for you to get your message out and to get your brand built." But we're uncomfortable doing that. So you got to start writing those notes, those messages, little things you want to share. It can be a quote of the week. It can be something for On Mondays, I like to share a mindful moment on Monday. So think about what's one thing you want to share. If you're an art teacher, you can share your favorite artist on every week. Think about what you can do, add to the world, add value, and make sure you do those hashtags and tags so people can start paying attention to what you're sharing with the world. Show the world that you have value, and then you can eventually start being paid for that.
You know, it's so, your point about, I don't want to talk about myself, I don't want to talk about myself. And I'm like you, I was an earlier adopter. You know, one of my kids calls me the social media OG, because I was just fascinated about this idea that I could share ideas and connect with people and learn about people all over, you know, literally all over the world, certainly all over the country. But this idea that you have to talk about yourself, and I tell people, you really just talk about what you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be your personal life. If you're a teacher, talk about what you love about teaching, what you love about the thing that you teach and the different things, or the experience you have with one of your students that got it, which every teacher loves that experience. So I am so with you that if you start out thinking small, and it's not about you really, it's about what you love, it's very possible to post on that every day without ever talking about yourself.
Yeah.
You know,
I posted about teachers, people who have been teachers. Like Billy Crystal was a teacher.
Oh,
Jesse
yeah.
Williams, they were teachers. And so I was doing it for a while, showing you different people. Yolanda Adams, you know, was a first grade teacher like me. So I loved sharing that. And again, that wasn't about me, but it was letting other people know, other educators who are doing very well in their respective careers, but they started out in the classroom.
Listen, we're gonna wrap up this segment, but when we come back, I want you to, you know, talk, you know, anything that you want to talk about that we didn't talk about, I want you to talk about that. But also, you know, maybe, you know, 3 or 4 practical steps that those listening to this show, especially if they are in education, but even if they're not, they can share with somebody else in their life, they should just do like now to at least get started on this path of finding new ways to increase their earning and income as educators. Listen, I'm talking to Dr. Bisa Batten Lewis. She's dropping gems and mics all over the place around here. You're listening to Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. We've been talking to Dr. Bisa Batten Lewis, author, speaker, educator, development coach, about things that educators can do to break the earnings barrier that many of them operate under in their core teaching job, to be able to find other ways to leverage their skill sets, their passions, their abilities as educators to bring value to the marketplace and get paid for it. We've covered a lot of ground, branding ourselves, looking at ourselves entrepreneurially, getting past the imposter syndrome or the I'm a servant syndrome, I shouldn't get paid for what I do, or shouldn't get paid more. But talk to me about some practical things that if an educator is listening to the show right now, or somebody who listens to the show that knows an educator could say, listen, you can do this, you can do that. I remember our goal is for, in my opinion, is for educators who really, lean into this as a ministry. We know how important educators are to our society, to not feel like they're choosing between doing what they feel called to do and they're passionate about, and making a good living and having a high standard of life. This show is about living an abundant life, and that shouldn't be something that's off limits for teachers who are serious about their profession. So talk to me about some practical things that educators can be doing as first steps to get along the path of what you talk about in your book.
Make a list. Don't we love lists? Start with a list of gaps of what's missing in your profession that could be improved. What's missing and what can be improved. Make a list. For me, it was curriculum. I have WINGS, W-I-N-G-S, WINGS curriculum, and that came about because we needed more practical curriculum for no matter what credential a teacher is when they start working in preschool and childcare. I want them to be able to utilize a full-fledged curriculum. So I wrote WINGS. So what is it in your profession?
For a second, just I'm curious. So you created a curriculum, and I know a little bit about education because I got one of my brothers is a great teacher, and I'm kind of passionate about it from an observer standpoint. But you created a curriculum for infants and toddlers and preschoolers, and I think a lot of people don't think about that. They think, oh, they're little. give them some blocks, give them some crayons, you know, make them play nice, and we're done. But you literally found a gap in the marketplace for creating curriculum for early childhood education.
Yes, as a consultant, I was going in, another way you can make money, guys, but as a consultant, I'll talk more about that. I was going into different childcare centers, and they were required to have these different materials of different regulations based on their state, who they were funded by. So many of them were trying to get state or nationally accredited so they can be the best on the list in their state and nationally. And so I was going in to support quality improvement. And a lot of them would say, oh, we use this particular curriculum, but I didn't see any evidence of that in their program. If they did, they didn't know how. It was too much. It was too convoluted for them. So I eventually developed Wings, put all the pieces I was training them on, lesson planning, assessment, family engagement, put all that together. And in 2009, Wings was launched. We're in the 4th edition now. It is a national curriculum. We're in about close to 30 states. And, you know, that's one of the ways that I was able to utilize my skills. And we keep close to 98% of our people who use it, our clients, they stay because it's practical for them to use.
Wow. And while we're at the topic, talk about Ideal Early Learning LLC, another program that you have.
Yeah, so as you guys are making your list of the gaps, for me, for Wings, for Ideal Early Learning, it was my training and consulting. It's my training and consulting. You don't want to do it under your Social Security number. You want to have a business where you can send in your W-9 with the name of your business and your EIN number. So Ideal Early Learning came about 2000, we'll say, but I really started in the late 90s. And this was me going to childcare centers, even churches with preschools, and training their staff on what? Curriculum. That's my thing. That's one of my superpowers. And so as I trained them, you know, people pay for that. And I'm going to talk about money a little bit, Alfred, if that's okay.
Please.
And I talk about this a little bit in the book. Thank you. So back in the 90s, around $125 an hour was kind of the average is what people were paying for training. Sometimes it might be a 2-hour training, a 3, 4 super Saturdays, or 6 hours on a Saturday, 9 to 4 with a 1-hour lunch oftentimes. So think about how much money you could make by going in and training on whatever your superpower is. And so people always tell me I have a bubbly personality. So I go in, I have a ball training these teachers, doing what I love. And so I was making money, but I was having a good time as well. And so I did early learning. That's why I was doing the training and consulting. I consult with school systems who want to implement early childhood in their high schools. I mentioned that earlier. I was a high school teacher, and as well as later on after first grade and colleges, God put me in high school. I'm going, what in the world am I doing here? Well, look what it turned into. God, it's so amazing. We don't know what his plan is, but he was putting me this way and that way. And now I work with school system, Alfred, helping school system, high school, career and technical education programs implement early childhood education and put their those high school students to work, which also supports the profession and feeds it new teachers because our workforce is suffering. And that's what I do early learning. That's what I do in that particular company.
You know, you talk about your personality, and I always tell people you don't have to have a bubbly personality to be noticed. You don't have to have the bubbly personality. I mean, people don't believe me anymore, but I'm an introvert. They're like, yeah, right. No, I was like, yeah, I'm an introvert. But I think you know, you're somebody who's been covered in Essence and Business News Daily and a variety of, you know, MadameNoir.com, the Network Journal. Obviously, you're on our show. And I always tell people, and I say this with all seriousness, if you can celebritize celebrities get paid not because of their skill set. They get paid because they're known. They get paid because people kind of identify on some level with something they do and how they do it. And they've now set themselves apart. You and I, you know, both know, especially if you go to church, we know there are literally hundreds of thousands of people who sing as well as, you know, Mariah Carey or, you know, Beyonce or whatever. We know this. We see them every Sunday. Why does this person or a particular person stand out? Is because on some level, whether they did it on purpose or by accident, and obviously we know the grace of God is always involved, somehow they're not just another great singer that can hit the high C. And I tell people, if you transfer that sensibility and you have to, yes, you're a curriculum developer, you're a teacher, you're a trainer, but when all is said and done, you're Dr. Bisa, and there ain't no other Dr. Bisas up there. So you talk to me about how the ability to, I say, connect with your faith and who God says you are. Identify that means there's not anyone like you, and there's something special. It's something, a gift that you have, a thing that you're about, something you're fascinated about. And if you can figure out a way to package that in a way for the marketplace, there's somebody out there that will pay for it. There's somebody out there that will pay for it, and will thank God that you're offering it to them. So just at the time that we have left, and I want you to do it as quickly as you can, because I also want you to make sure our audience can find you on social and whatever, on your websites or whatever. But talk about just the ability to connect with that special thing that God placed in you that makes you special, even if you don't think you're somebody special.
I'm special. I love connecting with people, and I love connecting people. And I really am truly a teacher at heart. I love sharing information. Don't tell me if it's the secret way the way you make money. I'm gonna tell people how to make money. So or to do whatever their heart has passion for. And so I do that definitely on social media. But before social media, we don't really have to talk about that, do we? Because we have social media. But make sure whatever room you're in, that people know before they leave, they know who you are and your superpower, that you've added value in that space, whether it's church, if it's a meeting, don't leave without adding value.
And how can our audience find and keep up with what Dr. Bisa is doing?
So my website is drbisa.com, drbisa.com. You can follow me on all social media. Just click on the top right. You have all my social media handles. You can just click and follow me: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm there. I have a blog, all of that. So get connected. Sign up for my newsletter as well on my contact page. I'm there. You can book me to come and speak. I love motivation as well. So that's me. I'm excited to be here. I've enjoyed this time.
And listen, since we got a teacher on the show, I'm giving all of y'all homework assignment. If you are an educator or an educator, get the book, The Paid Educator, 10 Professional Ways to Supplement Your Teaching Salary. That's a great gift that will keep on giving. Dr. Bisa, thank you so much for being on our show. I mean, we probably have to have you back. Back to school, we'll figure something out. But thank you so much for joining us on Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life.
Thank you. I enjoyed this time together.
What a powerful, powerful episode, and a great, great conversation from actually a really inspirational person. I mean, I wish Dr. Bisa Batten Lewis was one of my teachers, now I'm thinking about it. In college, I can see why she would be powerful as a trainer, but I also really want to drive home this idea that God does give each and every one of us the capacity to create wealth. And we know that means something different to every person. And it doesn't always mean a mansion and a yacht, but it does mean that you're not here just to survive and subsist and barely make it, that God has planted gifts and abilities in you that will allow you to always have abundant life, meaning more than you need. You will always have more than you need. That's what abundant life is about, and that's what this show is, your guide to living an abundant life, Be Lifted Up. So I really enjoy the fact that we had an educator in a space that is so important to our communities, an important ministry in our communities. We all know all ministry doesn't happen behind the pulpit. Teachers and educators are key, particularly to the Black community. A key part of our upward mobility. And Dr. Bisa Batten Lewis is providing an important blessing to all of us by finding ways for educators to actually live an abundant life and still be committed to the ministry and the professions that they love. So just a wonderful show. If you're an educator, if you know an educator, you definitely want to pass on her as a resource, get her book, and really let's really reinforce the blessings that we get from educators. Listen, I'm Alfred Edmond Jr., sitting in for my co-host, DC Marshall. You're listening to Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. You can follow us on all social media platforms at B, the letter B, Lifted Up Radio. Our website, beliftedupradio.com, to listen to past episodes of the show, and the Mocha Podcast podcastnetwork.com to check out our podcast as well as other podcasts in our family. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. Thanks for listening. God bless you. See you next time.